Hello, Blazers. Welcome to episode 118 of UAB Green and Told, original release Monday, February 26, 2024. This podcast gives us a chance to share stories from members of the UAB community. Listen to previous episodes of Green and Told at alumni.uab.edu/greenandtold on Spotify and the Apple Podcast app. While there, I'd like to encourage you to leave a written review to help more alums find us. I'm Greg Berry, a UAB alum and Director of Communications in the Office of Alumni Affairs. For nearly as long as she can remember, today's guest has been fascinated with art. As an art history major at UAB, Kristen Greenwood was able to refine her craft and gain an even greater appreciation of works by some of the greats. But her time at UAB wasn't like today's technologically advanced era, where students can make a series of keystrokes to register. When she was taking classes, you had to line up.
There was no online registration, so you had to go and, wait for a very long time in line, and everyone was there, on the last day of registration to get registered.
And she'll also share her experience working in the Birmingham Museum of Art and why it can be considered a hidden gem.
The quality of the collection and the diversity of the collection. I think, no offense to Atlanta, but you think Atlanta's the bigger city. They're going to have the better museum, better collection, and I don't think that that's necessarily true.
Plus, we'll learn what Kristen is doing now, working directly with young ladies through her work with Girl Spring.
Girls are some of our greatest resources. Girls have talents that they can bring to the table that complement the talents that are already at the table.
Paul Strand once said, "The artist's world is limitless. It can be found anywhere, far from where he lives or a few feet away. It is always on his doorstep." That world includes Birmingham, UAB, and Kristen Greenwood. Before moving to Virginia when she was young, Kristen lived in the Magic City. And for her, there's always been an appreciation of the arts, not just through paintings and sculptures. She has embraced just about every form.
I always took dance, so I always did dance lessons. I took piano till I was about maybe in 6th grade, and then I just kind of lost interest. I was in Girl Scouts. Those were kind of my big things. Never into sports. At that time, girls were not into sports as much as they are now.
The reason I ask is because you wound up coming to UAB via Virginia to get a degree in art history.
Right.
Where does that line up and where does that interest come from?
Well, living in Virginia, we were in Northern Virginia. So as a child, our school field trips, we were going to the National Portrait Gallery and the Smithsonian. So I always had a lot of exposure to that, honestly, mostly through school field trips. My mom and my stepfather were not really interested in art at all. So that was really mostly from school. So, so we were going to all these big museums as a child, went there a lot. And as I got to be a teenager and got to drive by myself, then I would go just on my own. And so I've always loved, since I first was exposed to that, the idea of museums and the idea of using art as a way to teach people about life. And then I kind of always knew that I wanted to come back to Birmingham. And so I did. And UAB was a great choice for me because I didn't have as much maybe as some other people do. I had to work while I was in college. So it gave me a great opportunity to work and still be able to go to school. And and so I just picked up the art history and took off from there.
Were there particular artists that you were drawn to or styles, genres that you were drawn to as a tween teenager before you got to here at UAB?
So they, so I ended up doing, this is going backwards, but I ended up doing my master's thesis on George Bellows, which is probably one of the first artists that I remember seeing at a museum in DC, probably at the National Gallery, I want to say. And so I got very interested in that American art, the Ashcan School, just even as an early visitor to museums. And then when I moved back here, the Birmingham Museum of Art also has a very big, large George Bellows, and it's one of the galleries. So I reconnected there and ended up doing my thesis on George Bellows.
What was it about his work that kind of drew you into him?
So he was an early 20th century artist, died well before World War II, probably right after, not that long after World War One. And so for the time, he was very edgy. So he depicted subjects of like the really gritty parts of New York, not the glamorous parts. And he was a lot of his work focused also, he did a lot of sports imagery, which I'm not a sports person at all, but for some reason, I think the sports, like the boxing matches, really showed that grittier side of New York, which just seemed very, I don't know why, it just seemed very cool to me, and I really liked it.
So when you decided to become an art history major, what were your plans in life? Because a lot of people look at it and go, well, there's not much you can do. You can curate or maybe you can teach, but what was your plan?
So I really always knew that I wanted to work in a museum.
Okay.
So I will say I'm very fortunate that I did get that job like really right out of college. It was the first real job that I had, and so I always knew I wanted to work in museums. And in Birmingham, there's really that there. Of course, there's AVA, which is also, but that's more like a gallery, not a museum. So that was the path I wanted. It was like I set my plan out, and it worked out really well.
You had mentioned that you had always wanted to come back to Alabama to go to school. Why was that? Because here you are. I mean, you'd spent, a dozen or so years away from the city, or I guess you spent 10 years away from the city growing up in Virginia. So what drew you back?
So honestly, I had a lot of family here,
Okay.
and so my parents got divorced. So my mother's family was in Virginia, and then my dad's family was here. So and my dad had passed away, but my other cousins and aunts and uncles and things like that were still here. Honestly, I should say that I came just because of UAB, but really, I didn't know. I mean, there's a lot of options for colleges in Birmingham, but UAB just turned out to be really the best one for me, and so family and then UAB.
I imagine it's about 9 hours away from home where your mom is up in Virginia at the time. What was life like being away and not being able to rely on that close-knit family? You mentioned you had family in the area, but not
Yeah,
relying on your mom as much.
it really, because when my parents divorced, they were not on good terms. So I really didn't see my dad a whole lot during the, second grade to college. Um, and then he died while I was my senior year of high school. And so my relatives from my dad's side of the family, I kind of had to get reconnected to. So there was one, my aunt, I guess I had stayed in touch with a little bit, but yeah, it was a little bit of rebuilding. And, the people that I knew in Birmingham as a child, I mean, other than my relatives, none of those people, were in my circle anymore. I didn't know anyone. So yeah, it took a little bit to get reestablished.
You get to UAB, you're here mid 90s up until 2000. What was campus like? Because it's not like the campus that we know today.
Right. So it was, first of all, when you went to register, you had to go to the Hill Center and register in person. There was no online registration. So you had to go and, wait for a very long time in line. And everyone was there, on the last day of registration to get registered. It was, I guess the main building was the Hill Center. And it was, just a 3 or 4 story red brick building. And the art history department moved around a lot. So some of the classes were in the humanities building, but then eventually some were in this, I don't even know what this built. It was a very small 1-story building on 10th Avenue, but I'm sure it's demolished now. But yeah, a lot of my classes were there. So it was, I'm sure, not quite as luxurious and high tech of an experience as it is now.
You wind up leaving UAB, graduating with your undergraduate degree, and you go straight into working in art with the Birmingham Museum of Art. What was that experience like? Because you spent a lot of time working there, more than a dozen years.
Yeah, it was great experience, and love the museum. I think we're very lucky in Birmingham to have such a great collection. I started right before, well, not right before, but during my time there, the museum had the Pompeii exhibition,
Yeah.
which was one of, honestly, it was probably from an art perspective, it wasn't the most, high quality, top notch in terms of, fine art, but from like what it did for Birmingham and the economic growth from that, and the visitors it brought in, it was incredible. It was such an incredible time to be there. And during my time there, we had other exhibitions that were big, but as far as the excitement that it created, it was pretty exciting time to be there. And I mean, watching the museum grow, because I was there for a long time, and it grew quite a bit from the time I started till when I left. And yeah, I mean, it was a great experience. I can't complain at all. I'm very lucky that I got to work there.
It's kind of like a hidden gem in Birmingham. A lot of people really don't know about it, and then it's underrated when it comes to being, on a grander scale.
It really is. I mean, I think the quality of the collection and the diversity of the collection, I think, no offense to Atlanta, but you think Atlanta's the bigger city, they're going to have the better museum, better collection. And I don't think that that's necessarily true. So it really is a hidden gem.
You wind up going from one nonprofit to another in Girl Spring. Talk a little bit about Girl Spring, what it's about, and why you made the change.
I will say, when I worked at the museum, I worked in the education department. So one of the programs that I started was it was called Teen BMA. And so I had been working with teenagers for several years, loved working with that age group. And then as a girl, I can relate to all of the trials and tribulations that teenage girls go through. So I knew our founder, Jane Comer, through the museum. She was heavily involved with the museum. So I knew her through that, and then learned that she was starting this new nonprofit. And it just seemed like a great opportunity and next step in my career. And so that's kind of how I got there. So Girl Spring started, Jane Comer founded it. And she founded it in 2010, and I didn't start till 2015, but it took a couple of years to get to figure out where we fit in the world of empowering girls. Jane's original vision was that girls are some of our greatest resources. Girls have talents that they can bring to the table that complement the talents that are already at the table. So she started it with that vision, and originally it was programming, more in-person programming. And then as it evolved, we discovered that the way we could really reach girls without any transportation or scheduling issues was through our website. So the website, when I first started, my biggest task was to get the website kicked off and get that launched. And it was already in development, but it needed to be pushed and launched forward. So as we started working with teenage girls directly, we realized they wanted to be a part of it. They didn't want to just go to a website and look at the information. So now that's our biggest program. So the girlspring.com is our website, and then the Springboarders are a teenage group of girls, mostly from Birmingham, but during COVID, we started meeting over Zoom. And so now we have several girls from out of state that participate too. So they create the content for the website, most of the content. We also have resources that are written by professionals, but the teenage girls work together as a group to figure out what they're going to write about that month, some of it's artwork, some of it's poetry, and then a lot is just personal essays. So that's the biggest program, teenage girls 13 to 18, with this online community where they can safely interact. It's monitored. So they love that. That's been really successful. And then we also have a big STEM fair every year. That's a public event. We have a summer camp called She Camp. And last year we had it at Art Play, which was fantastic. And then we do have other public programs throughout the year, and then also now in-school programs. So if girls can't come to us, we will go to them at their schools, middle and high school.
Why is this demographic so important to connect with?
There is still a persistence of, if you look at science and STEM careers, for example, STEM fields, girls and women are not going into those fields. So girls at about third grade start to lose confidence. They start to question themselves. Maybe a little younger, they might be more interested in exploring a field where it is maybe male dominated. So then about third or fourth grade, they start looking around and they say, wait a second, I'm the only girl in this, robotics club or science club or whatever it is. And they start to doubt themselves and question themselves. So confidence really falls at that, starting about that age. The, risk taking to try something new starts. And so I think there's a lot of things we can do by exposing girls to these careers, exposing them to strong female role models that are in leadership positions. So, when you think of CEOs at top companies, there's a very small percentage of women that are in those C-suite positions. So introducing girls to women that are in these roles can really do a lot to tell girls that they can see themselves in those roles.
How have you seen the program grow from the time that you started with Girls Spring to where you are today? Obviously, with COVID, things got changed a little bit with the virtual aspect of things. But in terms of the number of girls participating, how have you seen that change?
Yeah, so actually, COVID, we were fortunate because our biggest program at the time was our website. And so when COVID happened, before COVID, I would say we had maybe, 15, 20 girls in our teen group that was working on the website. And almost within a month's time, March to April of 2020, we had girls apply. You have to apply to join that program. And we had more applications than we had ever had before. And so for our 2021 class that coincides with the school year, we had 60 applications. So, it really quadrupled basically just in a month or two. And we've been able to consistently hold that number of girls. Girls graduate and then new girls apply. So we've kept that number at about 60. And then our website traffic too. Before COVID, we were getting about 3,000 visitors a month. After COVID, it jumped to 8,000 and then just kept climbing. So now we're at about 15,000 visitors a month pretty regularly.
I'm sure there's multiple ways people can get involved to kind of help. What can people do if they want to lend resources to Girls Spring and be a part of your organization?
On our website, girlspring.com, we have, of course, donating. We are a nonprofit, so of course there's financial contribution, which is always needed. We also have a junior board, which is young professionals 25 to late 30s, and they are really very hands-on. So people can join that group and they can help with the girls that submit the essays and things to the website. They can help by stepping in to help with their writing, giving them feedback on their writing. They also help at events. So when we have the STEM fair or the She Camp, we always need volunteers to jump in and help with that. And then, there's the junior board itself is this up and coming group of professionals that helps with different programs. So that's one way. The teenage girls, if you're a teenager, age 13 to 18, you can apply for the Spring Borders program. Or a new program we have, Girls at the Center, which is specifically for girls of color. So there's that. There's, we're always looking for people just to volunteer and help out at different events too. And that's all on the website. Oh, and internships. We have a lot of college interns, a lot of interns from UAB. So my intern right now is from UAB. So lots of internship opportunities too.
While the whole program is relatively young, we're talking 13, 14 years old.
Yeah.
Have you seen those success stories of the girls so far that have graduated from the program?
Yes, definitely. So my one of my biggest success stories, they're all successful, of course, but the very first girls that was in the Springboarders group, Zoe Zahariadis, graduated from, she was a senior in 2016. So she graduated, and then she has stayed in touch. She has done internships with us over the past few summers. Um, she's she is very much a girl who's going to change the world. So she ended up doing study abroad in Switzerland, and then she's recently graduated and gotten her master's. She developed a camp in Syria or in Greece for Syrian refugees. So she's done all kinds of amazing things. And every time I talk to her, she says how much being in Girl Spring and meeting girls from other schools, that's the big thing. These girls are almost all of them are from different schools. So you might be from Mountain Brook, you might be from Ramsey, you might be from Altamont, but the thing that they all have in common is that they believe in empowering girls, and they all want to make the world a better place. Zoe has said, being around all of these different types of people with different backgrounds really helped her think about how she sees the world and get to where she is now.
Looking back at your 2 degrees, both in history of art,
yeah,
but I'm sure they both helped you in your current role. How have they aided as executive director at Girl Spring?
Yeah, so I think when people think about art history, they think you go and you read books about art, you look at pictures of art, which you do, but it really teaches you how to think critically and creatively. And so I think whether you're in a museum setting or an academic setting, you can take the skills that you learn in art history and apply them to so many other things. We had a program actually partnered with UAB medical students to do something where the medical students would come in and learn about looking, they would really spend time looking at specific artworks, and then they were relating that to their diagnostic skills. So when you're in a busy hospital setting, I guess there's so much just logistical work and getting patients in and things like that they said oftentimes they miss things because they're just thinking more about the actual workflow than looking at things that could be pointing out symptoms to them. So we used the art to help them focus on that, which was really cool. So yeah, the critical thinking, the creative thinking, those all go into what I do now. And working with the teenage girls as they're submitting artwork or writing to the website, also just being relatable to people. I think art can make you look at things in a different way.
You made the decision to apply to become a member of the board of directors for the UAB National Alumni Society.
Yes.
To connect yourself back with the university. Why is that important to you?
For me, one, personally, UAB was such an important part of my, transition to adulthood, I guess. So, and it wasn't as big as it is now, but now I feel like it's really like a star of our city. Not that it wasn't then, but it wasn't as big of a star. Sure. So yeah, I've always felt a connection to UAB. I've tried to stay involved just different ways, whether, going to AVA or staying in touch with professors or making sure UAB interns are involved in Girl Spring. So yeah, I just thought this would be a great way to be more involved, to be more connected, to meet other UAB alums who also felt a great love for UAB. So yeah, I'm excited.
That's Kristen Greenwood, a 2-time graduate of the College of Arts and Sciences, where she earned a Bachelor of Arts in 1999 and Master of Arts in 2006, both in art history. Today, she is the executive director of Girl Spring, a nonprofit that was established to provide access to reliable information, inspiring events, and positive role models so girls are empowered to reach their full potential. With a deep relationship with Birmingham and UAB, Kristen definitely has an idea of what it means to be a Blazer.
I think having that, having the attachment to UAB, being willing to spread the word about UAB, make sure people know what a great place it is and what a great school it is and how many different programs and opportunities there are. I think that's my definition of a placer.
Be sure to check out past episodes of the UAB Green and Told podcast. Listen in at alumni.uab.edu/Green and Told. Have a story to share or know someone who does? Email greenandtold@uab.edu. Finally, be sure to follow us on social media. Just search UAB Alumni on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Thanks for listening, and until next time, go Blazers.